Move! You hear me? Keep your hands right where I can see them.
I'm not moving. These are just my keys, okay?
You think I'm playing? Step away from the door, now.
This is my building. I live
said back
here.
up. Hands up where I can see them, both of them.
Please, I'm not
Don't make
doing
any
anything.
When Officer Trent Bowman spotted 19-year-old Aaliyah Richardson in skin-tight clothes approaching a luxury apartment, he didn't see a resident coming home. He saw an opportunity to harass someone he assumed didn't belong. Immediately accusing her of breaking and entering before his eyes lingered too long, and his accusations turned sexual. What this officer with multiple prior complaints didn't realize was that his body cam was capturing everything. The racial profiling, the inappropriate comments about her body, the fabricated prostitution charges, and the young woman's terrified pleas that this was her own home. The scared teenager begging to call her father wasn't just another victim he could intimidate into compliance. She was the daughter of Sterling Richardson, one of the city's most aggressive civil rights attorneys, who knew exactly how to weaponize body cam footage in federal court. Bowman's decision to arrest Aaliyah for a crime that never happened would spark an internal affairs investigation, a sexual harassment lawsuit, and ultimately destroy everything he thought his badge protected him from. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to smash that subscribe button for more stories you don't want to miss. It was 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday when Aaliyah Richardson pulled into Riverside Heights, the upscale apartment complex where she'd lived with her father for 3 years. The 19-year-old sophomore had just finished her shift at the campus bookstore. Still wearing her fitted red top and black skirt, she grabbed her backpack, locked her car, and headed toward the entrance with her keys in hand, thinking about the assignment due tomorrow. She didn't notice the patrol car idling near the visitor spaces, or Officer Trent Bowman watching her cross the lot, his eyes tracking her movement with an intensity that had nothing to do with public safety. Bowman had been with Metro PD for 8 years. His buried personnel file told a story of escalating complaints, aggressive stops in minority neighborhoods, excessive force allegations, 3 incidents of inappropriate conduct toward women during traffic stops. None of it had cost him his badge. The department always made the complaints disappear, framing Bowman as a dedicated officer doing tough work. He'd learned his uniform gave him unchecked power, especially in wealthy neighborhoods where young black faces stood out. As Aaliyah reached for the entrance keypad, Bowman called out, "Hey, stop right there!" Aaliyah froze and turned to see the officer striding toward her, his expression hard. Her heart raced. That instinctive fear of knowing police interactions could go wrong fast. "Can I help you, officer? What are you doing here?" His eyes swept over her outfit in a way that made her skin crawl, lingering before meeting her face. "I live here. I'm just coming home." Bowman laughed coldly. "You live here? In Riverside Heights? People like you don't live in places like this. Why don't you tell me the truth? Whose apartment were you planning to break into?" "This is my home. My father and I live in Unit 4, 1-2. I have my keys." "Put your hands where I can see them." His hand moved to his belt. The body cam on his chest recorded everything. Her fear, her raised, trembling hands, the tears forming. "Officer, please. I can show you my ID. My father dressed like that, coming to a nice place like this." Bowman stepped closer, invading her space, his eyes traveling down her body again. "I know exactly what you're doing here. We don't need girls like you soliciting our residents." The accusation stunned her. "What?" "No, I'm a student. Please, just let me call my dad. Turn around, hands behind your back. Please, you're making a mistake." Her voice shook as cold metal snapped around her wrists. Residents stopped to watch, their faces mixing concern and curiosity. The humiliation felt worse than the fear. "Officer Bowman to dispatch. I've got a suspect in custody for attempted breaking and entering and solicitation. Requesting backup to Riverside Heights." "This is my house," Aaliyah cried. "Please, call my father. Sterling Richardson. He's a lawyer. I'm sure he can," Bowman said with dripping sarcasm, steering her toward his car. He didn't believe this girl had a lawyer father or belonged anywhere near this building. The body cam kept recording. Every word, every inappropriate glance, every moment of terror as she stood handcuffed in front of her own home. Bowman had done this before, made assumptions based on skin color and bias, pushed his authority as far as it would go. But what Officer Trent Bowman didn't know as he shoved crying Aaliyah Richardson into his patrol car was that Sterling Richardson wasn't just a lawyer. He was one of the state's most feared civil rights attorneys who'd built his career on cases exactly like this one, and he was 12 minutes away in a meeting, and Aaliyah had managed to hit "Call Dad" before Bowman snatched her phone. Sterling Richardson was in the middle of depositions when his phone buzzed on the conference table. He'd silenced it for the meeting, but something made him glance down at the screen. Aaliyah's name flashed across it, and his gut told him to answer. His daughter never called during the day unless something was wrong. "Excuse me for one moment," he said to the opposing counsel, stepping out of the room. He answered the call, but heard only muffled voices, movement, and then his daughter's terrified voice in the background saying, "Please, and this is my house," before the line went dead. Sterling's blood ran cold. He immediately called back. No answer. He tried again. Nothing. Years of experience handling civil rights cases had taught him to recognize danger, and every instinct screamed that his daughter was in trouble. He grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door, already dialing Aaliyah's number again. The third time he called, a man's voice answered. Aaliyah Richardson's phone. "This is her father. Who is this, and where is my daughter?" "This is Officer Trent Bowman with Metro PD. Your daughter is currently in custody." Sterling's jaw tightened as he pushed through the building's exit toward his car. In custody for what exactly? Attempted breaking and entering and solicitation. She was trying to gain entry to a residence at Riverside Heights Apartments. Sterling stopped walking. "Riverside Heights? Officer, that's our home. We live there. Unit 412. There was a pause on the other end. "Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down. Your daughter was acting suspiciously and refused to provide proper identification." "She refused, or you didn't give her the chance." Sterling was already in his car, pulling out of the parking garage. "I'm her father, Sterling Richardson. I'm an attorney, and I'm 12 minutes away. Do not move her from that location. Do not transport her anywhere. I'm coming right now." He could hear Bowman's tone shift slightly, that recognition that maybe this wasn't going to be as simple as he thought. "Sir, she's already been placed under arrest. Standard procedure requires—" "I know what standard procedure requires, Officer Bowman. I also know what the law requires, and you have zero probable cause to arrest my daughter for entering her own home. Keep her exactly where she is." Sterling ended the call and immediately dialed his law partner. "David, Aaliyah's been arrested outside our apartment by an officer named Trent Bowman. Claims she was breaking in and soliciting." "Yes, our apartment. Call the chief's office right now and tell them I'm en route. And if anything happens to my daughter before I get there, the lawsuit will be filed before sunset." The drive took 11 minutes. Sterling used every second to control his rage and shift into the mindset that had made him one of the most successful civil rights attorneys in the state. He'd handled dozens of cases involving police misconduct, racial profiling, and abuse of power. He knew exactly how these situations unfolded, knew the tactics officers used to justify unjustifiable arrests, and knew that his daughter was probably terrified right now. The thought of Aaliyah in handcuffs made him want to break every traffic law to get there, but he needed to arrive calm, collected, and ready to dismantle whatever story this officer had constructed. When Sterling pulled into the Riverside Heights parking lot, he immediately spotted the patrol car. His daughter was visible in the back seat, her face tear-stained, and her hands still cuffed behind her. The sight made his heart break, and his resolve harden simultaneously. A second patrol car had arrived, and 3 officers stood near Bowman's vehicle, talking in low voices. Sterling approached with measured steps, his briefcase in hand, and his phone already recording video. "I'm Sterling Richardson. That's my daughter in your vehicle, and this is our residence." Officer Bowman turned, and Sterling immediately clocked his body language. The slight defensiveness, the way his hand moved near his belt, the evaluating look that said he was still trying to maintain control of the situation. "Mr. Richardson, your daughter was—" "Before you continue, Officer Bowman, I need you to understand something very clearly." Sterling's voice was calm, but carried absolute authority. "I'm a civil rights attorney. I've practiced law for 20 years, and I specialize in cases involving police, misconduct, and false arrest. So before you tell me what my daughter was doing, I want you to think very carefully about what you're about to say, because I promise you it will be examined in detail. One of the other officers, an older sergeant with graying hair, stepped forward. Mr. Richardson, I'm Sergeant Hayes. We were just responding to Officer Bowman's call for backup. Perhaps we can sort this out. There's nothing to sort out, Sergeant. My daughter lives here. She was entering our home. Officer Bowman arrested her for a crime that didn't occur. Sterling pulled out his wallet and handed Hayes his driver's license. Same address as the building we're standing in front of. Same last name as the young woman currently handcuffed in that vehicle. Hayes examined the license, and his expression shifted. He looked at Bowman with poorly concealed frustration. Trent, did you verify her residency before making the arrest? She was acting suspicious, and when I questioned her, acting suspicious how? Sterling interrupted. Walking to her own front door? Having her keys out? Being black in a nice neighborhood? Sir, I don't appreciate the accusation, and I don't appreciate my daughter being handcuffed and accused of prostitution for coming home from work. Sterling's voice cut through Bowman's protest. Let me be very specific about what's going to happen next. You're going to release my daughter immediately. You're going to preserve all body cam footage from this incident, and then you're going to explain to me what probable cause you had to stop her, question her, and arrest her. Sterling moved past the officers toward the patrol car where Aaliyah sat. When she saw him through the window, her face crumpled and fresh tears started falling. He placed his palm against the glass. Baby girl, I'm here. You're going to be okay. I'm getting you out right now. He turned back to face Bowman and Hayes, and his expression left no room for argument. Get my daughter out of those handcuffs, now. Bowman looked at Hayes, who nodded tersely. As Bowman opened the car door and began uncuffing Aaliyah, Sterling continued. Sergeant Hayes, I want Officer Bowman's body cam footage secured immediately. I also want the CAD report, the arrest report if one was started, and the names and badge numbers of everyone present. The moment Aaliyah's hands were free, she stumbled out of the patrol car and into her father's arms, sobbing against his chest. Sterling held her tightly, one hand on the back of her head, and felt her whole body shaking. Over her shoulder, he looked directly at Officer Bowman. You made a mistake today, officer. A career-ending mistake. Because that body cam you're wearing recorded everything, and I'm going to make sure everyone sees exactly what you did to my daughter. Sterling Richardson didn't release his daughter from his arms until her breathing steadied. When he finally pulled back to look at her face, he saw the kind of violation that went beyond physical harm. Aaliyah's eyes were red and swollen. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks, and there was a raw humiliation in her expression that made Sterling's professional composure nearly crack. Baby, look at me, he said softly, holding her face in his hands. I need you to tell me exactly what he said to you. Every word, every comment. Can you do that for me? Aaliyah nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. Her voice came out shaky and small. He said people like me couldn't afford to live here. He kept looking at me, Daddy, the way he looked at my body, at what I was wearing. He said I was soliciting. He called me. Her voice broke. He said girls like me don't belong in respectable neighborhoods. Sterling felt something cold and sharp settle in his chest. He turned to face Sergeant Hayes and Officer Bowman, and when he spoke, his voice had dropped to a tone that made both officers straighten unconsciously. Officer Bowman, I'm going to ask you a direct question. Did you make comments about my daughter's physical appearance or her clothing before, during, or after this arrest? Bowman's face flushed slightly. I made observations relevant to my assessment of the situation. Observations about a 19-year-old girl's body while arresting her for prostitution outside her own home. Sterling pulled out his phone and opened his recording app, holding it up so everyone could see it was active. Sergeant Hayes, I'm formally requesting that all body cam footage from Officer Bowman's camera be preserved immediately and that a supervisor review it before we go any further. Hayes shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Richardson, I understand you're upset, but we can handle this through proper channels. Proper channels? Sterling's laugh was bitter and sharp. Proper channels would have been Officer Bowman asking my daughter for identification before putting his hands on her. We're well past proper channels, Sergeant. Right now, we're in federal lawsuit territory, and that body cam footage is the only thing standing between Officer Bowman and a career-ending civil rights violation. Sterling pulled his briefcase open and extracted a business card, handing it to Hayes. The sergeant's eyes widened as he read the credentials. Sterling Richardson, senior partner, Richardson and Associates, civil rights litigation. Below that, a list of credentials including arguments before the state Supreme Court and several high-profile police misconduct cases. I've been practicing civil rights law for 23 years, Sterling said, his voice taking on the measured cadence he used in courtrooms. I've handled 47 cases involving unlawful arrest and police misconduct. I've won 44 of them. So when I tell you that what happened here today is textbook racial profiling, combined with sexual harassment of a minor. She's 19, Bowman interjected defensively. A teenage girl, Sterling snapped, his composure finally cracking enough to show the fury underneath. A teenage girl who you stopped without probable cause, questioned without reasonable suspicion, arrested without evidence, and apparently sexualized based on her clothing. Do you understand what you've done? Bowman's jaw tightened. I was doing my job. This is a high-value property, and when I see someone who looks out of place, Sterling repeated, his voice deadly quiet. My daughter looks out of place in front of her own home. Let me be very clear about what I heard you just say, Officer Bowman. You saw a young black woman in this neighborhood and assumed she was a criminal. Then you saw what she was wearing and decided she must be a prostitute. You didn't ask for ID. You didn't check residency. You didn't verify anything. You just decided that her skin color and her clothing were enough to justify arrest. The silence that followed was heavy and damning. Sergeant Hayes looked like he wanted to be anywhere else on earth. Bowman's face had gone from flushed to pale. I want that body cam footage reviewed right now, Sterling continued. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. Because I'm willing to bet that camera caught every inappropriate comment, every unwarranted assumption, and every moment of my daughter's terror while you violated her civil rights. Hayes cleared his throat. Mr. Richardson, I can have a supervisor here within 20 minutes. No. Sterling's voice cut through the air like a blade. I want the footage secured and copied to me immediately. I don't trust your department's evidence retention policies, especially not when one of your officers is looking at a federal lawsuit. He turned his attention back to Bowman. Officer Bowman, I'm going to give you an opportunity you didn't give my daughter. I'm going to let you tell the truth. Did you make comments about my daughter's appearance that were sexual in nature? Bowman's eyes darted to Hayes, then back to Sterling. I don't recall making any inappropriate comments. You don't recall. Sterling pulled out a legal pad from his briefcase and began writing. My daughter states that you made multiple comments about how she was dressed. She states that you told her girls like her don't belong in respectable neighborhoods. She states that you accused her of solicitation based solely on her appearance. And all of this is on your body cam. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you make sexual or inappropriate comments about my teenage daughter? The muscle in Bowman's jaw twitched. I made observations about her clothing being inconsistent with residency in this building. Sterling's smile was cold and entirely without humor. You heard a 19-year-old girl tell you she lived here, that her father was a lawyer, that she could prove her residency, and instead of verifying any of that, you decided her red top and black skirt meant she was a prostitute. That's your defense. He turned to Aaliyah, who was still standing close to him, her arms wrapped around herself. Baby, did Officer Bowman touch you at any point beyond placing you in handcuffs? Aaliyah's voice was barely a whisper. When he put me in the car, his hand was on my lower back. It felt wrong. The way he was standing so close when he was talking to me felt wrong. Sterling's expression went absolutely arctic. He looked at Sergeant Hayes with controlled rage that was somehow more terrifying than shouting. So we have racial profiling, false arrest, sexual harassment, and potentially inappropriate physical contact with a teenager, all documented on body cam, all witnessed by residents of this building. He gestured to the small crowd that had gathered on nearby balconies. I count at least 15 witnesses who saw Officer Bowman arrest my daughter in front of her own home. Hayes ran a hand over his face. Mr. Richardson, I think we need to get everyone downtown. No one is going downtown. Sterling said flatly. My daughter is going upstairs to our apartment. She's traumatized, and she's not answering any more questions without me present. What's going to happen is this. You're going to secure that body cam footage right now. You're going to have it uploaded to evidence and provide me with the case number. And then tomorrow morning, I'm filing a formal complaint with Internal Affairs, the Civilian Oversight Board, and I'm beginning to draft a federal lawsuit under Section 1983 for deprivation of civil rights. Sterling paused, letting his words sink in. But that's just the beginning. Because when I'm done, I'm going to make sure that body cam footage is seen by every news outlet in the city. I'm going to make sure everyone knows that Officer Trent Bowman arrested a college student for coming home, that he sexualized a teenager, and that he fabricated criminal charges because he couldn't imagine that black people might live in nice apartments. Bowman finally found his voice, defensive and angry. You're twisting everything. I was doing my job. I had reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion of what? Sterling's voice rose for the first time. Walking while black? Wearing clothes you found attractive? Tell me, Officer Bowman, what specific articulable facts gave you reasonable suspicion that my daughter was committing a crime? Bowman opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. She was in an area known for property crimes. This building has one of the lowest crime rates in the city. Try again. Her clothing was consistent with what a 19-year-old wears to work. You're really going to stand here and tell me that a red top and black skirt constitute probable cause for prostitution? The silence stretched out. Sterling saw exactly what he'd seen dozens of times before. An officer who'd gotten used to his authority going unchallenged, who'd made assumptions based on bias and prejudice, and who was now realizing that this time there would be consequences. Sergeant Hayes, I want Officer Bowman's supervisor here immediately. I want the body cam footage secured, and I want a formal incident report number before I take my daughter upstairs. He put his arm around Aaliyah's shoulders and began walking her toward the building entrance. Over his shoulder, he delivered his final statement. Officer Bowman, you're going to want to call your union rep, because that body cam you're wearing just recorded the end of your career. 3 months after Officer Trent Bowman arrested Aaliyah Richardson in front of her own home, the body cam footage went public. Sterling Richardson had made good on every promise he'd made in that parking lot. The video showed everything in brutal clarity. Bowman's eyes traveling over Aaliyah's body, his dismissive tone when she tried to explain she lived there, the fabricated prostitution charges, and the young woman's terror as she begged him to wait for her father. Within 48 hours of its release, the footage had been viewed over 3 million times. The Internal Affairs investigation took 6 weeks. The report was damning. Investigators found that Bowman had never asked for identification before making the arrest, never verified residency despite Aaliyah's repeated claims, and made multiple comments about her physical appearance that were deemed inappropriate and sexually suggestive. The investigation also uncovered something Sterling had suspected. This wasn't Bowman's first complaint. There were 5 prior incidents of aggressive stops in minority neighborhoods, and 2 previous complaints of inappropriate conduct toward young women during traffic stops. All had been quietly resolved without discipline. This time was different. The body cam footage made denial impossible. The video evidence was irrefutable, and the public outcry was immediate and sustained. News outlets across the country picked up the story. Civil rights organizations issued statements. Community groups organized protests outside the police headquarters, demanding accountability. 8 weeks after the incident, Officer Trent Bowman was terminated from the Metro Police Department. The official statement cited violations of department policy, racial profiling, false arrest, and conduct unbecoming an officer. His police certification was revoked by the state board, ensuring he could never work in law enforcement again. But Sterling Richardson wasn't finished. He filed a federal civil rights lawsuit under Section 1983 against both Bowman personally and the Metro Police Department. The lawsuit alleged racial profiling, false arrest, sexual harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and violations of Aaliyah's 4th and 14th Amendment rights. The case was built on the foundation of that body cam footage, frame-by-frame documentation of every violation. The department's attorneys reviewed the evidence and knew they couldn't win at trial. 6 months after the arrest, they agreed to settle. The terms included a financial settlement of $425,000, mandatory bias training for all officers in the department, revised policies on body cam footage retention, and the creation of a civilian oversight committee with real investigative power. Sterling donated half of the settlement to organizations fighting police misconduct. For Aaliyah, the victory was bittersweet. The money and the justice didn't erase what happened. She still felt a flutter of anxiety every time she approached her own front door. She still remembered the humiliation of being handcuffed while neighbors watched. She still had nightmares about Bowman's eyes on her body and his hands on her back. But she also had something powerful. She had a father who believed her, who fought for her, who used every tool at his disposal to make sure she got justice. She had proof, captured on video, that she'd done nothing wrong. She had the satisfaction of knowing that Bowman would never wear a badge again, never have the power to do to someone else what he'd done to her. Sterling kept a copy of the body cam footage in his office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that documentation matters, that knowing your rights matters, that having someone willing to fight for you matters. He thought about all the young people who didn't have lawyers for fathers, who didn't know to demand that footage be preserved, who were left with nothing but their word against an officer's report. The case became one of Sterling's most cited victories, but he never forgot what it cost his daughter. Justice had been served, but Aaliyah had still paid a price for simply coming home. If this story angered you, moved you, or opened your eyes, don't scroll past it. Share it. Start the conversation, and subscribe for more real cases where accountability matters.